Canby, welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for, already February 5th, 2020. If you please stand for invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. For tonight's invocation, just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is communications. Mr. McClure.
So, follow up on the Columbia Distributing Strategic Investment Zone application. Status is the county and the state are still trying to work out eligibility issues. Had some interesting write-ups in the Canby Now podcast today. So we still just don't know where they are. It's still evolving, but at this point, nothing really to take action on.
Can I say one bit about the communications on that too? I was in communication with the attorney from the fire district, and they wanted to echo the same letter that they sent last time because they still feel that way, but that also they just want to be a good partner with us, so that they want to communicate with us and make sure that when the eligibility comes back around that they're a part of that discussion. So I told their attorney that I would pass that on as a message.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Yes.
Scott, were you able to reach out to the school district like we talked about last meeting and see if they'd like to be involved?
Yeah, actually, we sent letters out to all the taxing entities and got no contacts from anybody.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the update. First opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. If you wish to address the council on non-agenda items, please fill out a yellow card there on the back and make sure that it's given to Melissa, and we will give you 3 minutes to address the council. If we can make a decision or provide the answers to your questions, we will do so. If not, myself and staff will get together and figure out the appropriate time to do so. I have no yellow cards at this time, so we'll move into mayor's business. Just a handful of things for tonight. Just want to update everyone that the Park Advisory Board and the Bike and Ped Committees met twice this past month to discuss how they want to move forward with the grant that the Bike and Ped Committee got regarding the logging trail. And so it sounds like they're coming into some agreement on just kind of moving forward with maybe going out for a request for proposals, and that's being worked on by staff right now to move forward with, to maybe get that moving into some planning and moving forward on that. So definitely great to see two of our committees working in that fashion to get things done. Yeah, some really great pieces. One of the ideas that came out that I shared with Scott, our city manager, the idea was maybe to address maybe just going out and just even cleaning up the trail with park staff and whatnot. And so I think the idea came from one of the park board members about taking a street sweeper down the path and seeing if we can get it just, take care of some of the debris and whatnot. And so Mr. McClure is working with our public works team to figure what that would look like. So that's a step in terms of just getting it a lot of, maybe some more use here coming up with spring weather. So a couple of things from the Oregon Department of Transportation. So I attended the ODOT briefing on tolling a couple weeks ago, which was also a topic at the recent Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation meeting. And so they are moving ahead with looking at the tolling piece. So they're looking at tolling I-5 and I-205. Right now they're in the working through the NEPA, so the National Environmental Protection Act, I believe is what it stands for. So they're going through and working through some of the environmental pieces on what that would look like to do the work that would then trigger the tolling piece. So right now, they are looking at discussing for I-5, the window or the area that they would be tolling would be from southwest Multnomah Street to northeast Going Avenue. And then on 205, they will start the zone from start and end at Stafford and then move east of the Abernathy Bridge. And it could be as far as 82nd Avenue on 205 is what they're looking at. Still a long way from determining what pricing is going to look like, if that's going to be just flat rate, peak pricing, all those kinds of things. So they're working towards that. Moving into the Area Commission Transportation meeting, part of the conversation on the tolling, kind of the reason why they're looking at tolling is to try to control congestion and also create revenue for projects, transportation projects, which they were not very clear on if that would be in areas along the tolling corridors or if they would use that money statewide. So there's pieces on that. The reason, so there's a lot of back and forth still, but apparently the National Transportation Board has given the state of Oregon the go-ahead to start looking at tolling for that stretch of road, even though generally speaking on a federal level, you can only toll new highways. This is not new highway. We're adding, we're expanding the stretch there at Abernathy Bridge to adding a lane, and then what they're talking about on I-5 through the Portland corridor there is adding continuous lanes for on-ramps and off-ramps. So you literally are kind of like what they did on I-5 and 12th and along there, where you can literally just come on, get off at the next exit without having to merge, is what they're looking at. And that's the expansion piece of the Rose Quarter corridor. The other aspect that they're looking at is putting on building 2, possibly 3 freeway covers. So they basically would lower I-5 through the Rose Quarter, and then they would put caps over the tops of them. And the idea would be to create green space and an opportunity to build potentially up to 6-story buildings for either housing or business development. And so they're still determining how much, if there's enough money to do 3 covers or just stay with 2. Right now, the price tag they're looking at is about $750 million to $1 billion for the Rose Quarter project. So that was already put in House Bill 2017, 2 years ago. So that's where the funding for that's coming from, as well as the tolling would help pay for some of that project as well. So more to come on that. Stay tuned. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meets tomorrow night. Also tomorrow night is the State of the City address at Custer Town Hall. So they'll be doing a business showcase, which will begin at 5:30, and then the State of the City begins about 6:30, 7 o'clock. So come on down for that. And the last piece I want to bring some discussion to here tonight is regarding the noise ordinance. So we've had and I'm going to apologize for the last name piece, Vistiakis come in and speak to us a number of times about fireworks. And so in lieu of doing an email rundown on all of you, I thought I would bring it tonight so we can either add some closure to it or bring it forward and actually have a conversation here on the dais. So again, what I'm asking is there an appetite or a desire to open up the noise ordinance where the fireworks piece falls and have that conversation and revisit that whole ordinance and talk about the fireworks, the fairgrounds, and then, fireworks for the high school during the football games, the fairgrounds and their noise ordinance, their exemption from it, as well as the exemption of the city fireworks / Canby Fire fireworks. So if we want to have that dialogue, I'll put it on the agenda. If not, we'll leave it as is. But I want to make it so that we can cross something off our list already for 2020.
If we put it on the agenda, would that be a public hearing, or would that be just amongst us up here?
Well, it would be, that would I'd have to talk with Scott and our city attorney about, but
It just depends on what action you're trying to take. You're basically asking whether or not there's enough appetite for even starting a discussion, Mr. Mayor?
right, I'm looking first to have a dialogue, if even put it on the agenda, to have that dialogue for us to talk about, and then.
Then it
if
wouldn't
we
be a
wanna open
public
it up-
meeting, or it would be a public meeting, but not a public hearing.
Right, and then
If
the
that
next
makes
move would go to a public
Yeah.
hearing to open up the ordinance for public comment and whatnot.
I'm good with it the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Berge. Any other,
I'm fine with the noise ordinance the way it is. Sorry, forget that. I'm fine with the ordinance the way it reads. I wouldn't be opposed to having a discussion if others wanted to, but I don't know that it'd change my mind, just to be honest.
okay,
I'm also kind of okay with the way it is right now. However, I did just move 2 blocks away from the high school, so that might change my opinion come next football season.
any other input on the matter?
I'm fine with a discussion if folks really want it regarding the high school. I have no interest in changing the exemptions for the fairgrounds or the city show.
Okay,
I would agree with Counselor Dale. I'm not really interested in changing the fairgrounds or the city fireworks. I don't think we've received complaints about them. I really empathize with the gentleman that came in. It hurts my heart every time he comes in and talks, but I'm not sure that my position would change overall. So if there's an appetite for a conversation, I'd have it. I have a lot of empathy for him, so it's a challenging conversation, but I'm just not sure my opinion's going to change.
okay.
Yeah, the reason I'm okay with the discussion on the high schools, he has come multiple times, but we have not, as a body, come to closure on it.
Right, and that's,
And I'm kind of, we owe him a closure one way or the other.
and that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get us to, at least on that
I
piece.
think that's
so.
a great way to state it. Councilor Dale, I think I would feel the exact same way. To have the conversation, I think would be something that would be kind of owed to him
Yeah.
for bringing the issue up. And yeah, so let's have a conversation.
Okay. Councilor Parker, any thoughts? Same being to open it up and have the dialogue, at least how it relates to the high school and their fireworks piece.
Yeah, I don't have a sense that there is a commanding public interest in cracking open the noise ordinance. So I would like to show respect to a citizen who's been here a couple of times, but I think the sentiment is that we've got an ordinance that we're prepared to live with.
Okay.
And I would just say,
Sorry, quick, Joe, sorry. But, I mean, understand if we have the dialogue and it is something we want to change about the high school piece, that does open up the ordinance for conversation and not just that piece, correct?
that's
does
what
open
it
up the
sounds like.
ordinance.
And I would just mention that the time frame for that is if you're going to be making a change to an ordinance, right, and then there's the 30-day waiting period as well, after the second reading. If you were to change the ordinance, just looking out into the crystal ball, then the remedy for them is they would come for a variance. And you have to come with so much advance notice for each variance.
Correct.
And so they could still apply for variances, even if you change the ordinance, but they can't if you don't give them enough time. So if you're going to be changing the ordinance, you should do it more sooner than later.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
So it sounds like, yes.
Is there a somewhere in between where we could, I mean, and I don't know, I'm just asking because I didn't know this was going to come to us, so I haven't given it deep amounts of thought this evening, but to maybe have someone on staff or someone work with him and the school district to see, originally the school district said they were open to maybe some less concussive fireworks, and I don't know if those are an option or not, but is there an in-between where we can see if there's a win-win situation instead of opening up the whole ordinance? It doesn't sound like there's any desire amongst any of us to really change the ordinance, but I think that we'd all like for him to feel safe in his community, and if there's a win-win where there's a less concussive version of what they use now, maybe we can work with them on that. They brought that to us as an
Sure.
option, so.
Well, my understanding is that they're already using a low-level, amount of, powder to be able to get the fireworks up and to get the boom effect that they're using. So I don't know if there's any less that can be done.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, that makes total sense. I just recall them bringing that to us as an option, so I wasn't sure how thoroughly we had pursued that.
No, perfect, thank you. Well, then I will work with Scott and Melissa to figure out where we can get this on the agenda so that if we do make a change, that everyone has enough time to properly notice and do that, so, great. That's all that I have this evening. We'll start with council liaison reports. Councilor Berge?
So the Planning Commission met the last Monday. They had an application come in for Stanton Furniture, looking at putting a 130,000 square foot building out here. It kind of had mixed reviews, and it probably does not qualify for a size, so we won't have that here. So, but that was it.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilor Parker?
Nothing new today.
Councilor Hensley?
Nothing new on my liaison roles, but we have some community leader meetings planned for Canby Suicide Prevention Task Force, and I hope that all of you would be able to come, looking at my colleagues on the dais, February 11th or February 20th, I think are the dates. I will email you the date and time, because one's an afternoon and one's an evening, and that's all I have at this time.
Yes, I did see those, and it's been an interesting, a lot of reading lately just on that and ties with social media and, and all that, so.
A basic agenda, if you will, on this meeting is just to kind of bring back the community leaders, let them know, remind them what our mission was, where we've come from, where we've gone, and where we're going, and how they can be involved in helping us further the mission.
Great, thank you. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Received a communication from our local chapter of the Oregon State Grange, our friends from Warner Grange that come every year. And they just wanted the council to know that at the district wrestling tournament, February 15th, that's the Saturday after Valentine's Day, the Prescription Abuse Leadership Initiative of Oregon will have an exhibit on to talk about signs of opioid addiction in teenage children, and they just wanted to let the council know and encourage them to drop by and express their support if you're attending the wrestling tournament.
Okay.
So I've done that. I can also send that out by mail as a reminder. For Canby Utility, nothing, no particular news to report except to congratulate Bob Hill. He has been reappointed chair for this year. And in a couple weeks, the mayor and I will be interviewing appointments to fill the vacancy of our dear friend Walt Daniels, who is going off the Cub board.
Retiring again?
He's retiring again. So big shoes to fill. And just as a PSA, if you are interested in being on the Canby Utility Board, you can get applications for that on our website, Melissa? Yeah. And go ahead and fill them out there. It's interesting, you apply to the city for an appointment to Canby Utility, but that's how we do it. It's how the charter works. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Councilor Varwig.
Thank you. So I have nothing on the library board due to scheduling conflicts. I was not able to make the last meeting, so I'll have an update next time with the library. But I did attend the fire board meeting, and they had a work session prior to the board meeting, which was a great work session. There was some discussion on the SIZ, as you can imagine. Looks like some of that might be working out, so we'll worry about that later. But they also worked on their strategic plan, which I thought was fantastic, doing some upgrades to that and revisions to it, so that's awesome. At their board meeting, they had a survivor from a heart attack survivor attended, and a lot of the people were able to meet the people who saved his life. They also had a 911 operator come there and receive some awards, so that was fun to be a part of and to watch that happen. So thankful to have been there. Also, the fire department received a letter from, I believe it's Kaiser Sunnyside Hospital, from one of the doctors there praising the Canby Fire team on how great they are to work with. So just wanted to give a shout out and a kudos from up here to the Canby Fire Department and all of those who are easy to work with. So that's all that I have.
Great, thank you, sir. Counselor Spoon.
Just two quick items. In addition to the State of the City, tomorrow night is First Thursday in downtown Canby, so a lot of businesses have events or activities or are open slightly longer hours. So if you're downtown, check out some of the local retail shops and other businesses. And then finally, there are 3 open spots on the Canby Area Transit Committee. So the application is also on the website, much like the CUB application, and we would love to see you apply.
Great, thank you. Moving to the consent agenda this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the January 15th, 2020 City Council work sessions and regular meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which include the minutes of the January 15th, 2020 City Council work session and regular meeting. Any discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 6-0. Next up on our agenda are a couple of ordinances for this evening. What we got, Melissa?
Okay, you have a second reading for ordinance number 1521. It's an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Clackamas Construction, Inc. for the South Ivy Street Sanitary Sewer Pumping Station Improvement Project and declaring an emergency.
Great. Scott, is there anything you wanted to add? I know, so we had this at our last meeting. Do you want to give a quick brief synopsis?
Yeah, just the basics on it. It's South Ivy, and it takes care of multiple development projects in the neighborhood, including a project at Hope Village. And so we have the contractor lined up, actually came in, within budget, so the project's in good shape there. We did attach the emergency ordinance so we can make sure we get in the construction window and get them going quickly.
Yes,
Great.
you explained the E-Clause last time, and I appreciate that. With that, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 1521, authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Clackamas Construction Incorporated in the amount of $588,861.25 for construction of the South Ivy Street Sanitary Sewer Pumping Station and declaring an emergency.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Varwig to approve and adopt ordinance 1521, authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Clackamas Construction Incorporated in the amount of $588,861.25 for construction of the South Ivy Street Sanitary Sewer Pumping Station and declaring an emergency. Roll call vote.
Councilor Berge?
Aye.
Councilor Parker? Councilor Hensley?
Aye.
Council President Dale?
Aye.
Councilor Varwig?
Aye.
Councilor Spoon?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. All right, our next ordinance.
Okay, this is a first reading of ordinance number 1522. It's an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute an amendment to its contract with MV Transportation, Inc. of Dallas, Texas for providing transit operations for Canby Area Transit.
Evening, Julie.
Good morning, Mayor, councilors.
Did you just say good morning?
Good morning, it's afternoon.
It's morning
Evening.
somewhere.
I've been up late.
We're morning, because she's leaving.
Yeah.
Sorry. Most of you remember that the city conducted a procurement process and selected MV Transportation in early 2017. The initial agreement was for 3 years, and it will expire in June of this year. Since 2017, CAT has increased its service 2 times. In April of 2018, we extended both the span and the frequency of the Route 99 by adding 9 hours of service per day, or 928 hours annually. And then in September of 2019, we added Saturday service on both the Route 99 and on Dial-A-Ride, which increased the number of service hours by another 1,400 hours annually. So obviously, these improvements increase the number of service hours that the city's paying for, and also increase the cost of CAT service. Because of STIF, which stands for Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, and it's money that comes from the passage of House Bill 2017. The increases in service were a bit surprising to us. We didn't expect this to happen, so our contract wasn't designed to absorb those sort of increases. And so anyway, service happened much faster, which is really good news. And the support from STIF is paying for the new Saturday service, and it will pay for 2 buses and a local Canby circulator route, which we expect to implement in mid-2022. The ordinance before you tonight will extend the city's contract with MV by 1 year and add $24,603 to the not-to-exceed amount, which is a 2.2 increase over the current year. This will allow the city to postpone the next procurement process until the Transit Master Plan has been updated and STIF revenue projections for the next biennium are available to us. The year 4 estimate of 17,000 hours is also a not-to-exceed amount, and we expect the actual hours and the cost to be a little lower than that, what is stated in the actual amendment. So I would recommend this amendment because it allows the city to be better informed and for our next RFP process. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Julie.
And I do know that it's night.
Any questions for our transit director on
No,
this
that's a
matter?
pretty good explanation.
No, but I'm pretty excited about getting a circular back in a couple years, and you've worked so hard to really bring Canby Area Transit up and continue to increase service, and I'm really grateful for it. Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
It's huge. It's a big win for sure.
And since I have the camera, I want to say, please apply for the Transit Advisory Committee positions. Walt Daniels also resigned from that committee.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah.
So there's
And,
3.
yes, and our chair, Don Smeeback, passed away in December. So we'll be selecting a new chair at our meeting in March. Don was a really vital part of that committee, so he will be sorely missed.
Dot is a friend of mine.
Yes.
I haven't talked to her in a couple of months. Oh, my goodness.
So
I'll have to call her.
anyway, it's fun, and you get a free bus pass, so.
Yay! Well, I'd apply, except I'd be advising you myself, so. But the free bus pass for my kiddo would be cool.
Thank you.
All right, so no questions
Thanks,
for
Julie.
Julie? All right,
Sounds good.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to make a motion.
Yeah, please do.
I move we approve ordinance 1522, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute an amendment to the contract with MV Transportation of Dallas, Texas for providing transit service operations on behalf of the city of Canby and Canby Area Transit to come up for a second reading on February 19th, 2020.
Second.
Yours, mine's right here. I opened it up.
Motion has been made by Counselor Spoon and seconded by Counselor Varwig to approve ordinance 1522, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute an amendment to its contract with MV Transportation Incorporated of Dallas, Texas, providing transit operations for Canby Area Transit and the city of Canby for our first reading. Any further discussion or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. We've nothing under the new business piece. City administrator business and staff reports.
Yep.
Mr. McClure.
Thank you. So a couple items, splash pad almost ready to launch. So we got the cost estimates. We're trying to dovetail everything in. We're getting it finalized maybe even by Monday where we are. A nice one when you have a talented crew to lower costs and get a couple more components that we wanted. Public Works is going to actually install the sewer on that, so we can reduce costs. That gave us some flexibility to get some other, features put into that project, so that's going to be really nice. Target's still Memorial Day. We'll see. That's going to be a push, but it'll be early. We'll get there. Walnut Street Extension, just a couple things, lots of activity on that. We got the RFP out to our pre-qualified engineering firm so we can get the conceptual design done on that. The TSP, so we actually have to have this project in the transportation system plan. ODOT more or less is written off on that, so we think we're in pretty good shape there.
Good.
Interesting trigger that happened on that when you start doing things is if you take traffic right now that's dispersed and you funnel it all onto coming to Walnut, you fail that intersection. So the recommendation at this point, there is actually a roundabout up on the top, so that was an additional cost to work on that project. So that'll be another design thing we're working in while we have other projects going.
Before you've said words that I need to come back on that caused me pause. Roundabout. Is that?
I'm not listening to that word.
Can we get some more information?
Is that? Can we have some dialogue on that?
If I call it a circular bout, would that?
No, that doesn't help me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard somebody earlier today say we should put a roundabout on Haynes so the trucks won't go down there.
Well, you can make a big enough roundabout that trucks can go around without a problem. So.
I know.
Well,
It's out of my jurisdiction, so.
And just to make your heads pop a little bit, one of the discussions for next week when we do, or next time when we street priorities is looking at Township and Ivy coming in and maybe doing a roundabout there too.
I've already
So.
heard that one.
Roundabouts are great. Don't worry, it's okay.
They're not
Don't
very-
worry. Famous last
I'm
words.
from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah, right. All right.
Yeah, so on that same note, we also worked on the access plan for ODOT. Now that was an interesting one. You have some fun chicken and egg discussions there. So eventually they have to say, yes, you can actually go onto their road. And what we found out was you have to have all your engineering completed, all the property owners lined up, including they want to know what the development plan is for the new section that would be going through, all your funding lined up, then you get to ask permission to actually access their road. So I think we would work hand in hand with them. They say there's a process so you can keep things moving along, but theoretically, you could do a significant amount of work, have it all ready to go, and they could say, no, doesn't meet our standards. They have an interesting standard that we have to show that the road would benefit Highway 99. That basically what we're doing was actually make Highway 99 better. So that's an interesting higher standard to meet. So
Is that a new standard? Or is
I
that,
think it's always been there. Yeah. So it's interesting because we were very concerned about, wow, how much money could go into this, and then we get a no. That wouldn't be preferred.
No, but not be.
Yeah. So we'll work with them along the ways, but that's just interesting. Just that it's very complicated. Different level we're getting to was just with the area and how everything's functioning. When the TSP was done, transportation system plan, it showed that in about 2030, at some point, the intersection would go down to a D level at Sequoia. So not failed, but a D level, still not where you want to be. And so what we're doing right now is actually we're hiring DKS, who does a lot of the traffic studies in areas, to take all the current ones that have been done with the development projects in the industrial, weave that together, and then give us a real nod for, okay, what's it look like right now? What's it look like in the future? And then try to get to a better feel on whether we've got an issue in like immediately 5 years from now, maybe it is the 10 years from now. And also what they're going to help us out with is like trigger points. So if you get a business of this size, you can go, that's fine, we'll be able to absorb that. You get a business of a certain size, ouch, that's going to cause an issue. So multiple actions we're taking in that area and trying to weave everything together. Very complicated project, and let alone the funding side of it. So. There's that, and just last note, the library task force had its first meeting. That's a long process, but they did have their kickoff meeting, and as we noted before, we've got active participants in all the subcommittees and on the main committee.
Good. Okay. Great. Anything else, Mr. McClure?
Nope.
Okay. Second opportunity for citizen input. Anything from the agenda this evening? Seeing no one rushing up, we'll move into action review.
Okay, you have approved the consent agenda, adopted ordinance number 1521, and approved ordinance number 1522 to come up for a second reading on February 19th.
Great, thank you. Tonight, we have an executive session for the council after the meeting here, so we're going to be, I need a motion to go into exec session.
Before we do that, Mr. Mayor, I do have one quick comment. I just want to thank Scott, actually, for taking the time to do the chamber luncheon yesterday and inform the business community. Some of the things you just mentioned tonight reminded me that you kind of shared that a little bit yesterday, and I already heard some of this information, but I think that's helpful for you to have that connection with the business community, so thank you for doing that. And with that, I move that we adjourn to, it's not on here. Okay, did I make this as a motion, even though it says we can now recess?
Yeah, make it as a motion,
I
please.
move that the city council now recess this meeting to meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing
Real property.
real property ORS pursuant to ORS 192.610, which allows the council to meet in executive session to discuss these topics.
Okay, the motion's been made to do that. I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, so I'll read this real quick. Only representative of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. The council will adjourn to the Willow Creek Conference Room to hold its exec session. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in exec session. At the end of the session, we may reconvene to the meeting room we may reconvene the meeting in the Willow Creek Conference Room and conduct any further business that needs to be taken care of. All right, so we've officially adjourned to exec session. Thank you, Canby. Good night.